This is Powering the Future, a podcast series brought to you by Smart Grid Forums. One planet, one power grid. Hello and welcome, everyone. In this episode, we're diving into how artificial intelligence and data are reshaping the power grid in terms of smart energy flows, predictive maintenance, personalized electricity, and much, much more. Now, joining us today is an expert in the field, someone who's right at the heart of this energy tech revolution. That's Leon Kuiper, lead data scientist at Stedin. Hi, Leon. Welcome.
Yeah, great. Thanks for having me.
Delighted to have you on the podcast today. So, Leon, tell us a little bit about your background and the work that you're doing at Stedin. How long have you been there? What's your role as a data scientist? And how are you affecting change in the power grid with AI?
Yeah, so I've been with Stedin for about 3 years. Before that, I worked at a few startups and in a consultancy company. Originally a mechanical engineer by background, so the electrical engineering space is fairly close to what I've done. We work on quite a broad range of products in my team, where there's a total of 17, and there's the sort of typical forecasting methodologies like predicting where do we have problems tomorrow, how much power do we need, or do we need to manage away, or like take away basically. But it goes from there to image recognition, so identifying is there a certain asset on a photo, and anything in between.
Great. Okay. What would you say has been the most successful use case for AI at Stedin so far?
Yeah, it defines a bit on what success is, but the one that we are currently seeing quite some big changes, because it's when you will see that within the more conservative DSO, because this statement is a big DSO. People tend to be quite conservative, so the use of AI isn't the way I was sort of used to it at startups, where it's just like, let's just try it and see what happens. Now it's really like, no, we first have to think about it, and there has to be a human in the loop, which I'm fully behind, and it's very good to have some control. So there's sort of a difference in where you see the true value and where the value might be, but it's a bit more exploratory. So the one that we are very proud of is our load forecasting. So we recently made a full-on release where we're now predicting on like 500 spots in our grid that are actively or close to congestion levels.
Right. So
either they're already at congestion level or they're close enough to it that we want to monitor them. So that's there's more the traditional AI methodology, of course. There's also in the new generative AI, what people tend to refer to now as AI. There's a new initiative within Stedin that we help mechanics identify when they go to a certain asset and they have to do some maintenance on it. And it might be a Siemens something from 1973. Well, the people that installed it have all retired. They're not in the company anymore. And you have to go through hundreds of documents to understand what it needs, what kind of maintenance it needs. So to be able to ask a question like, hey, I'm going to this asset, what do I need to do? And then Gen AI can go through all those documents and return maybe 7 points that you have to look at,
right.
Which is something that can quickly help speed up. And in practice, if you would ask the now retired specialist, you would have asked them, they probably would have, if there might be 8 things to come up with, they might have come to 7 or 6. And the AI system might also only come to 7 or 6. But at least this way, you can do it with a click of a button, and you don't need to have all that expert knowledge in your system. So that's one of the I would say the first one that we're also implementing at scale now.
Okay, that sounds like it's going to improve efficiency quite a bit. Have you been measuring the results at all?
It's still a little bit early for that, to be honest. And that is also one that is quite difficult to measure because you don't know what you're missing in the space of generative AI. You can get a feel for is it right or is it wrong, but then you need the experts there all the time. So once you go into true operational support, it's a bit less obvious than with load forecasting, for example, because if we're saying it's going to be 22 megawatts and it's 21, well, you have that measurement, but with generative AI, it's a bit more tricky. So we're mainly focusing on user feedback for that. If the users say like and that's we don't have enough of it yet to say at full scale it's fully rock. Our experience is that it's good, but it's still it's kind of early days. Maybe it's been live for half a year ish now, so we have to get some more results for that.
Now, something you mentioned, Leon, which we hear a lot, is that the power grid environment is quite conservative, and you can't just run with a new idea. You really have to test it, plan it, implement it carefully. Tell us about how you manage risk around the implementation of AI. What are some of the factors you have to keep in mind?
Yeah, so one of the main things that we have found out, and there was a different project in what we're calling automated grid design. So for all basically brownfield redesign of existing grids. So we're looking at every part of our grid, mainly low voltage at this point, and figure out what do we need for 2050 in this specific area. Which is something which is now done by a team of engineers, and it's a lot of manual work because they have to identify how many houses do I have, all these other different things. And our approach is there, and that's why I'm touching upon that topic, is really to what is being done now by people and how would we want to do that by an AI system, and also what kind of checks and balances do people have themselves to make sure it's correct, and how could we replicate that in an AI system? Because typically what you see is that it's quite easy in a proof of concept to make it seem like it works. So you can ask a ChatGPT, you can ask a question and it's getting it right. And you're like, okay, I've asked it 3 questions, so it must be working. Well, that's only, that's the proof of concept phase. It's really all about that. Can you make it work consistently? Can you make it work robustly? If OpenAI releases a new version of their model, does it still work, or is it now gotten smarter, but for your specific use case, it's gotten worse? Like, there's all these things in place that you have to have, sort of a check system, and that's what we're looking at. So, are there specific? So, basically, for these type of Gen AI solutions, we're looking at the approach with sort of this is what the questions are, and this is what we're expecting the answers to be. And then if there's an update, every once in a while, you just ask it the same question basically, and then you're expecting more or less the same answers. But that does require someone to classify all of those. This is what the answer should be. And once you go into operation, then that becomes a challenge. And another issue that is going to come up, and it's not come up yet, but what you sort of see it already with software developers in Gen AI, is that because we're using Gen AI a lot, the knowledge of the user deteriorates because they're not doing the thinking anymore. So at some point, they won't be able to sort of critically think about what is being done. That's a whole other.
That's a whole other issue. Yes, I was going to say, right now we're on that sort of border of, we've got experts who can critique the AI, who can sense check it, and so in a way, the safety around it can be managed. But what do you think AI is going to do to the shape of the workforce, to the power grid workforce? Let's say in 10 years' time, so by 2035. What's going to be the shape of the workforce, the profile, the requirements for the job?
I think generally that's a very tough question to answer. I wouldn't even be able to say 5 years from now. I do see that there's a lot of potential for better decision making. I think you can sort of categorize AI into 2 things. It's doing what humans can do now, only at larger scale and faster and more efficiently, basically, or being able to do new things that weren't really technically possible before at all. And that second one is one where you don't really see any true impact on the workforce, because it's just things that we weren't doing before, and it might create new processes and it might free space, but it's not so much. You need a different sort of person to manage that than the existing workforce. But in the existing workforce, honestly, it is quite a potentially dystopian worldview that if you hear Bill Gates say that in 2035 we won't need teachers and doctors anymore, that's pretty scary to hear those types of things. And I'm not convinced that it's going to happen, but it will happen in some level, to some degree, because the example of a teacher, if you have a personalized teacher that's exactly looking at what you need rather than what a group of 20 students needs, that is going to have some benefits, obviously. That will have similar things within the grid space, where having a system that looks at the entire space of Stedin, our company, the entire time, with every decision it's making, rather than what one person can have in their head, is going to massively change the accuracy of what's going to come out at some point, especially if you look at the pace at which AI is going. So I find it quite difficult to answer and say this is what people will need to be, but I find people need to become comfortable being uncomfortable. I think that's the main thing. Like, the world will constantly be changing, and if you want to sort of stop that wave, that's not possible anymore. That's I think from a if you want, basically if you want to keep your job, it's a very negative way of framing it, and I don't really want to do it, but the people who will keep saying no at some point it's going to come to your door. That's just unfortunately the reality that we live in, and that's not necessarily Stedin's worldview. We have much more work to do than we have people for. So it's about retraining people into other skill sets. But it does mean that things that you're doing right now, it's quite likely that you won't be doing that in 10 years' time anymore.
Right.
So that's, but that can change. Yeah, I mean, speak of a call center. We're at a space right now where AI systems are able to have a phone call with someone without them being really able to recognize that it was a computerized voice. And those kind of things, that's just a very basic example. But on the grid side, as I mentioned, if you can have someone keep the entire rule book, all the regulations in the back of their head with every design decision they make, that can be quite useful. But I also don't think that we're going to get away if a regulator steps into our foot. Why did you make that decision? Well, ChatGPT said it was a great idea. I don't think that's going to work. So you're going to have humans in the loop, and you're just going to be able to work at larger scale, and you have to be able to check the outcome of the results. And that's what it's all about, being able to think critically and to be able to keep thinking critically, because what you see now is that people are sort of it makes it very easy to be lazy. And then at some point, the few moments where you don't want to be lazy, you might have become complacent in a way. And that's a risk that I see. And that's, I find it very difficult to say for a specific function, but this is going to change. I think honestly, all the positions are going to change. My position is going to change. I think data science isn't exempt from this. Training a model, that's something that an AI system could do itself. So it's, as I said, being comfortable, being uncomfortable, and adapting, I guess, to whatever comes.
And right now, you have a centralized data team. Is that right?
Yes.
At Stedin, yes. Do you see any changes in that in the near future? Are you likely to distribute the team into the domains, into the specific functions more?
Yeah, so there are already some sort of specialized, what you could consider AI teams in different departments that have an asset specialization, for example, modeling, transformers, stuff like that. But it's going to get easier and easier, as you said, to make your own model. It already did in the past 2 years, but I do feel that you need to have some centralized overview, governance as well. AI governance, the AI Act in the EU is now a big thing. But beyond that, it's also just, you want to make sure that the results and quality are there, and that requires experience. And we've had some analysts from other departments be like, well, I tried to train a model, here are the results, it's just not really working. And you just look at, but there are, like, just the foundation that you've set is not what you want it to be. Because that's the tricky thing in all of this. You have to have some understanding of what you're working on, and at the same time, you also need to make sure the data quality is there. And that's for me maybe the biggest risk, because if you give an AI system a load of garbage, it's garbage in, it's garbage out, but it's going to be very confident in the outcome that it's going to very confidently get the wrong answer. But for the data set it was provided, it's technically the right answer. So that's a very difficult thing. So we are seeing more decentralization, but we are trying to, as difficult as it is with an organization of 5,000 people, we're trying to keep some oversight over what's possible. But at the same time, we also know that we can't stop it. We are aware that there will be more decentralization. We're not trying to keep it all with us, but we're just trying to, in those spots where it's coming up now, how can we make sure that they're doing things the right way, and that we, it's sort of allowed, I would say, but under conditions.
Great. Okay. And so what do you see on the horizon, Leon? What new use cases do you think are going to transform the operations? Perhaps ideas that you've got on your mind at the moment that haven't been fully explored or implemented?
Yeah, I think that the biggest one in all of this, from like a congestion management approach, that's also, for Stedin specifically and for the Netherlands, given our fairly high congestion levels. But I don't think that's particularly other countries are either close to us or will soon be close to us. I think just the automated steering of assets and just the control over optimizing your grid. We're already doing it now. We're asking windmills to be turned off at specific times, or factories like, hey, maybe you could run this system from 2 to 4 in the afternoon rather than from 5 to 7. That would help us tremendously. But right now, that's still done through a human-based approach, which requires a lot of back and forth discussions. And in a way, if it's a computer talking to a computer, they can make split-second decisions, and the other side will not get offended if they change their mind. So as an example, we see it in the planning side of things, where we have the demand planning side that's quite nervous about making a change to the planning requirements. Say like, well, maybe we need more people installing charging points because the other side has to build a process around it. But if those are two sort of automated systems, they could change it sort of daily. They could change it hourly if they wanted to. And they just see there's a big disruption. We need more people to go from left to right. And if you have a fully automated flow there, the left and the right side aren't going to get offended by each other. So I think that's just the automated decision making in a way at scale. That's where I see it, and it's in a lot of different fields. But it does mean that you have to validate that it's working, and you do need a human in the loop to approve a certain suggestion. But right now, the human has to also make the suggestion and has to take that entire space of stakeholders into account that has an opinion about it. And maybe that could all be sped up.
My final question for you, Leon, is have you seen any really cool AI solutions on the market or entering the market that you think are going to be really game-changing?
I'm guessing this specifically for the grid.
For the power grid, yes.
Yeah. Now it's kind of interesting because I think a lot of the things that from a DSO perspective we would need, they're already there. Like IoT systems have been around for a long time. A colleague of mine has a washing machine, and she just presses a smart washing machine, and it basically does the laundry when the price is right. So there's already a system to like it. And those things have been around for a long time. It's just about getting it all together. So these integrators, true integrators, I think that's going to be that's going to be the thing. Where that's a combination between hardware and software. You can have really smart AI systems right now, but in the end, it has to, from a grid perspective, it has to be able to make a decision, it has to be able to turn on that washing machine, so to speak. And that's where I see that the biggest changes are coming. So with the rise of IoT sensoring and stuff like that, I do think that there's a space coming up.
Great. Well, thank you so much for your time today, Leon. It's been great talking to you. Thank you for your insights. And we look forward to catching up with you again in some months to see how the projects have developed. Have a lovely day. Thank you.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Join us again next week as we unpack another big topic shaping the future of the power grid. Until then, thanks for watching and for listening. Please subscribe on YouTube so you don't miss any of the episodes, and catch us on LinkedIn too. This is Powering the Future, a podcast series brought to you by Smart Grid Forums. One planet, one power grid.